We're learning further developments from the special tribunal in Bangladesh, where
thousands of documents related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein released.
This is me. This was me.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
It's all just an exercise in theater.
The government shouldn't be your daddy.
You were booed. What does that show you about masculine disaffection?
We were cheering as well as.
God really put us here just to sit down and wait for him to come back?
Will not be able to tap into.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to KLCNE News. I am your host, Zamontheplat, and today we are covering breaking news that is extremely relevant because it's happening right now. This channel is dedicated to followers of Christ, news that shows them where the world is headed. Today we're covering a bunch of breaking news, mainly three. It's always three. We try to stick to three per episode. First of all, we're talking about the Prime Minister of Bangladesh and the fact that she has been sentenced to death. Then we're covering Trump and the Epstein files. And finally, we're going to be covering Mark Carney's liberal budget proposal for Canada. Now let's get into it. So, another Islamic majority country is making headlines. I actually went further, learned a little bit more about the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. This episode, I want you guys to tell me in the comment section how you feel. I want to make sure that I'm not just talking at the camera. I want to bring the information and keep you guys updated throughout the whole process. So I'll be looking here, I'll be looking here. If you don't like it, let me know in the comments and I'll change it up for next time. But this is a lot of information and I want to make sure I'm reporting it accurately. I think the elephant in the room is how close are we really to Christ coming back? And I have my own theories. I'm going to leave those aside for today. But there are wars and rumors of wars. There are people doing very crazy things that can be the precursor to the mark of the beast. But with all that being said, we don't get afraid of those things. We focus on what we can do to steward our blessings in the direction that allows us to give to others, be faithful stewards, and make sure that when this is all said and done, Christ tells us, well done, good and faithful servant. Anyhow, so let's get to the first subject. I keep wanting to say her name is Samia Suluhu because this Prime Minister of Bangladesh, her story is so similar to Samia Suluhu, and I'm saying based on like in recent years, especially when it comes to the election. Sheikh Hasina is her name. She has been sentenced to death for crimes against humanity, guys.
we're learning further developments from the special tribunal in Bangladesh, where the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been on trial in absentia. That tribunal has now sentenced the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to death for crimes against humanity. She has been tried in her absence because she is living in exile in India. An extradition request lodged by Bangladesh last year. Our correspondent says no indication that India will grant that. But she's been sentenced along with her former Interior Minister and police chief. They were found guilty of allowing the use of lethal force against protesters.
So sad. No one wants to see the death of anyone if, you know, you're a follower. If you're a true follower of Christ, we're supposed to forgive and we're supposed to find a way to move forward in society, have mercy on people. Bottom line, here we are. So I'm going to go to her Wikipedia because that's where I found out what I really needed to know. Headlines are saying, okay, she's been sentenced to death, but they're not getting into her story. I do not follow her signs and zodiac anymore. You can't serve two masters, but I'm just mentioning her date of birth so that you guys are aware. Her birthday is September 28th. My birthday is September 30th. I was just looking at that and I'm like, that's crazy. I used to be someone who followed signs almost religiously and I deep dove into it. I'm done with that new age stuff. So yeah, anyhow, what a name too, because a sheikh is basically like a religious leader. So one thing we do know about her immediately is that she is Muslim, born in Bangladesh. Most of her family was assassinated. That's something that most people aren't talking about. Her father was a political leader as well. So this is not something new to her. They actually staged a coup against her father. A lot of these Islamically led societies, countries are vulnerable to coups. Like, the loyalty is very finicky, very, very finicky in these nations. That's something that I've been noticing. Let me know if you disagree in the comment section. So she was born in 1947. She is a Bangladeshi, I keep saying Bengali, Bangladeshi politician who served as the 10th Prime Minister of Bangladesh from 1996 to 2001 and from 2009 to 2024. So, President, I can't pronounce these names, guys. I'm normally really good. I want to get through this as quickly as possible just to give you the relevant information. So, when you go to the voting booths, you pay attention to what's been taking place. Her father is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. During early childhood, under the care of her mother and grandmother, when the family moved to Dhaka, they initially lived in the neighborhood of Segun Bagicha. Her father was killed. Her whole family, the only surviving members were her husband, children, and her sister. And with her entire family being murdered back in the August 15th, 1975 Bangladeshi coup, where her father was assassinated, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. She was visiting Europe at the time of the assassinations. She could have also perished during that coup, but she was visiting Europe. They took refuge in the house of the Bangladeshi ambassador to West Germany before taking an offer of political asylum from the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi of India. So this family is a target. And we can't be biased. We have to look at the news that comes in and look at it from an objective perspective rather than what the media is just feeding us. Yes, she has been accused. Maybe it's been proven. I don't know. I'm not in Bangladesh. But what's been accused or brought against her is that 1,400 people were murdered as a result of her orders. Right? She is in exile currently in India. India is protecting her, and there are experts that are reporting on this story saying that India will most likely protect her and she will not have to face death, and she'll just have to remain in exile. This story is very similar to Samia Suluhu, the woman who is the president of Tanzania, has been accused of ordering the assassination of her citizens who are opposed to her being elected. There are claims that Samia Suluhu actually rigged the election so she could remain the leader of Tanzania. And apart from these two, because Tanzania, I must mention, is not a predominantly Muslim nation. Bangladesh is 97% Islamic. And then Mali, lots of chaos taking place there. In Mali, it is a predominantly Muslim nation. In Sudan, it is a predominantly Muslim nation. And this does not mean that every single Muslim is chaotic or dangerous, but it's something to pay attention to when you marry the Islamic faith with political authority. That's something we have to be honest about when we pay attention to where these coups are taking place and the powers that be creating laws that undermine the safety of their citizens. That's something that I'm noticing as a consistent theme. We will continue to follow this story. Now we will move on to the Epstein situation.
Breaking news rocking Washington, D.C. Never before seen emails released this morning by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, raising new questions about President Trump's relationship with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. The emails provided to Congress by the Epstein estate show private correspondence between Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell and between Epstein and author Michael Wolff, with multiple references to Trump, all raising more questions about what Trump knew and when. Epstein writing in a 2011 email to Maxwell that Trump, quote, spent hours at his house with a sex trafficking victim. Epstein calls Trump in this email a, quote, dog that hasn't barked. We should note it's not clear what exactly Epstein meant by those comments. Let's bring in MSNBC Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delanian. Ken, take us through what these emails say and their significance.
Good morning, Anna. Well, the one you just read is perhaps the most important one because it was written by Jeffrey Epstein in 2011, long before Donald Trump's political career, and he used the phrase "the dog that hasn't barked." That's a phrase from a Sherlock Holmes story suggesting a clue. And he says that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted name of a victim, spent hours at my house with him. He's never once been mentioned. And then he uses the phrase police chief, etc. So these emails, essentially what they do is they raise new questions about Donald Trump's longstanding contention that he had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's massive sex trafficking.
In summary, Epstein is someone who was an elite, who knows a lot of politicians, who knows a lot of people of influence, and you'd invite these persons of influence to his island to do freaky things. It is a shameful situation for the West to be associated with. However, it wouldn't be the first time. This is why we have to make sure that we are electing politicians that reflect our Christian values and biblical principles, because there are a lot of people who are not Christian who look at Christian societies in the West and they say, well, you guys aren't perfect, don't criticize the East. But when you look at the advancements we have made and the period of time in which we've been able to enjoy them, you can't say that we are worse off than the East. Yes, there have been killings at the hands of people who represent Western government, but at its core, our societies progress because of the principles of the Bible. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not this, there are so many principles in the Bible, especially when it comes to fruit, which this channel is all about. Looking for the good fruit so then we can say, hey, this is working out, this is not working out. Fruit that is presented by the Western societies is that people can come here and be a lot safer than they would have been in their home countries in the East. And I no longer believe the narrative, because there's too much evidence to support the contrary. I no longer believe the narrative pushed out by liberals that accuses America of being the reason why the East is in turmoil. No. Greed of leaders, greed, self-seeking nations, they're the ones who end up messing it up for the little guy. And although we have greedy politicians that can be found in our senior government, our federal governments, there are many people who are still working to combat that in an ethical manner rather than staging coups. Just be mindful of that, guys. God has his hand on America still, and we just have to do a better job. Until Christ comes back, we have to just make an effort. I've been called to be bold in truth, in sharing the gospel. And when you do that, you're not supposed to be someone that reflects chaos. You're supposed to focus on peace, love, joy, things of that nature.
President Trump's name appears hundreds of times in the newly released batch of emails and text messages as well, including Epstein saying that he'd, quote, met some bad people, none as bad as Trump. And in one text exchange, someone whose name was redacted wrote to Epstein, it will all blow over. They're really just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can do to do that.
White House addresses Epstein email suggesting there's a photo of Trump, U.S. breaking, Epstein's Trump archive killed him. There is no reason for us as a nation that was founded on Christian principles to maintain the presidency of someone who has been proven to be involved in these types of escapades. It is evil. It is not Christ-like. And although we can make mistakes, this is something that there needs to be honesty in regards to. And if he can step down and we can replace him, then that would be great. I'm in Canada saying all of this, so don't take me serious. But that's something that I can definitely get behind, because although we are very excited in the Christian community to see Donald Trump avenge or at least protect Christians who are in Nigeria and in other nations, we have to be honest about what he is not doing correctly. Without accountability, how can we improve? We just have to be accountable. And the moment we lose accountability, we become vulnerable to the same types of situations that the Eastern Hemisphere is facing when it comes to coups and mass killings of protesters and all these other evil things.
With Epstein. And Epstein asked Wolf, if I were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? Now, that, of course, suggests that Epstein would be in communication with Trump and would be helping him craft an answer to a media question. And then Wolf answers, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. So again, that suggests that Wolf and Epstein believe that Trump was more involved or has more knowledge of Epstein's operation than he was letting on. Again, none of this is definitive, but this adds to the picture and adds to the questions that both Republicans and Democrats have about what exactly Donald Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. And
in growing up, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot from young girls who come from broken homes, or even homes where they don't have a great relationship with their parents, choosing to become involved in these relationships with the desire to elevate themselves financially. This is just the fact. I'm not accusing any of these girls of doing these things, but that's a reality. Like that's a reality. I believe at the core, the issue is families need to be protected. Families need to be transparent when it comes to the abuses that are taking place. They need to ask for help from the church, and we need to make sure that members of the church actually represent Christian values. They have the fruit to match. If they do not, we need to get them out of there. We need to detox. We need to detox as a country in Canada, and as my recommendation, because I'm not American, my recommendation for everyone watching from America: detox every system that claims to be built on Christian principles, biblical principles. Detox them, hold them accountable. Do not let anyone, because we're seeing a lot of that, especially during this Candace Owens investigation, live investigation every day on YouTube. I'm so excited for her episode tonight. Don't let them gaslight you into being discouraged from asking questions and holding people accountable. The same way us as the little guys and little girls have to face prosecution, face fines, accountability for things that we don't do correctly because we don't have connections, is the same way they have to. That's how we make sure that society can be improved, even while, you know, Satan keeps throwing up his dukes to get us closer to a very nasty antichrist leader, which is inevitable. But on the way down, guys, we don't have to stand for injustice. If it means that we lose our lives in the process, it's just something that we were called to do. Now, let's get into this Mark Carney situation. It's so crazy. Most of my viewers have been American, but that's also because they have a bigger population. So I try to make sure that even though we talk about Canadian news, we're also going to talk about American, because they're our neighbors. They're our neighbors. I'm not buying into this whole America versus Canada nonsense. And I'm also not for the two just becoming one. I'm not for either of those things. Anyhow, so let's talk about the Mark Carney, 24th Prime Minister of Canada. What's going on with you? I played a clip at the beginning of this video from Jamil Jivani. He is a part of the Conservative political party. He's awesome. One of the very important things, in fact, let me just pull up the clip. Watch this clip.
The government put in their recent budget a commitment to fund a national school food program. Now, that probably sounds good to a lot of Canadians. So the government's helping kids get lunch because their kids go into school without food. It should frighten us that there aren't parents who can buy their own kids lunch. The government shouldn't be your daddy. The government shouldn't be your mother. Right? We have families, and families should be strong enough to provide for their children. And when they're not, that should break our hearts. I wish more Canadians were offended by the idea that the government wants to buy your kids lunch, and the government is making it okay for you to not be able to provide your own children with food. That's a problem. And when they disagree with the government, can say, I disagree with you, I'm not dependent on you, and I don't have to mimic your talking points or your virtue signaling. But the more we become state dependent as people, the more we're afraid to push back.
All right, we're back. Mark Carney, Mark Joseph Carney, born March 16th, 1965, is a Canadian politician and economist who is the 24th Prime Minister of Canada since 2025. After Justin Trudeau. There's so many articles about this. Canadians are spending less, although we're going into the holidays, they're broke. Used car dealerships, because right after your home your mortgage or your rent, a lot of people have car payments. Used car dealerships, their car prices are at an all-time high. I believe it's because they're not getting rid of them fast enough, because people just can't afford it right now. The majority cannot afford it. So right now, Canadians are suffering financially. So let's look at his history as it relates to the 2008 financial crisis. What's his resume say about him? Carney's actions as governor of the Bank of Canada are said to have played a major role in helping Canada avoid the worst impacts of the 2008 financial crisis. Okay, let's talk about that. The epoch-making feature of Carney's tenure as governor remains the decision to cut overnight rate by 50 basis points. Listen, all of this is jargon right now, financial jargon. Let's summarize it. So he was the governor of the Bank of Canada previously. And he was also the governor of the Bank of England. On November 26, 2012, Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, announced the appointment of Carney as governor of the Bank of England. He was the first Commonwealth citizen from outside Britain to be appointed to the role since the Bank of England was established in 1694. Wow, so something's really powerful about him. Here's the thing. A lot of people are criticizing Carney, and I don't know if it's just because they're anti-liberal, similar to how liberals are just anti-conservative regardless of what they're doing effectively or not. I don't want to look at this with a bias. I want to look at this based on the major players, because one thing that Christians need to be aware of is we're all vessels, and there are systems that have nefarious agendas that are to depopulate the earth, create coups, and one world order. That's what they want. That's what they want. Depopulate, one world order, and create coups. Okay? That's their MO, that's their agenda. And the number one organization as it stands, or at least based on my opinion, let me know if they're actually number two or where you would rank them, is the World Economic Forum. All right, so let's see if Mark Carney has any associations with them, because World Economic Forum had this thing called ID 2020. Their main arguments are you will own nothing and be happy, because the government will now take the place of like you and your family working together to build up yourselves and working with your community, your church, things like that. They want you to sit and be obedient. And the moment they decide to put that off switch or to create circumstances that make it difficult for you to live, they will slow poison you. That's basically it. This is not conspiracy theory. This is what they have discussed in the past. I will pull it up in videos to come, but for time's sake, I want to just get right into this. World Economic Forum, Mark Carney, agenda contributor. Okay, he has a lot of accolades. Proud of you, Mark Carney. He is also the external member of the board of Stripe. Oh my gosh, this is basically his background, but I want to know why he's relevant to, why is there an article? Let's scan this. They have articles on him, so they're paying attention. Anyways, I don't want to get into subjects that I haven't read prior to the broadcast, so let's just say this. Mark Carney right now is a part of an agenda, could be a part of an agenda that is not to the benefit of Christians who follow biblical principles. He has to do a great job of exposing how he is actually for our community, because we can't always assume, which a lot of Christians do, that if someone is liberal, that means they support biblical principles. That is not the case. And we can't assume that just because someone is conservative, that they must support biblical principles. A lot of people are just excited to get an extra check into their bank account or deposit in their bank account, that they overlook the policies that are being put in place. Stop doing that, guys. Stop. I'm so proud of every freedom fighter that stood up against the mandates, because they were BS. They were nefarious. I just love that word so much. Anyhow, all right, so I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Once again, I am your host, Zamontheplat. See you tomorrow.